bunch of engineers, like Brian. And so the younger ones were okay, but with that, they'd go to offices and they'd have people there, and they'd walk the halls. That first day when they launched those, they literally just kind of like walk down the lines and look and ask everyone have questions, and that kind of thing. Though having the managers on board, like Reed said, it's getting those touch points is, because that's gonna sometimes be more impactful than just a corporate-wide announcement. So you can see again, we just went through this real quick, but what this model does and what other models do, they generally are just a framework. So a lot of the change management is going to be the same across different models, but sort of you don't want to necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. So some of these work as a framework. Unsurprisingly, most of the change management models you see are attached to a consultant of some sort. They started with a consultant. And that's not a bad thing, but it's pretty much just they put together these sort of models that can help. So another thing I want to look at real quick was just throw up a couple other change management models that are going to have generally the same principles that you'll see in ADKAR or others. You might, again, remember some of these from project management, but one of them was Lewin's change management model, which was the unfreeze, change, refreeze. So again, it's very similar. On the unfreeze, you just gotta make people aware that a change needs to be made. What's the issue? Why do we need to make this change? Kind of rule it in awareness and desire. Change is when you go into kind of the training and the action. You're going to actually change something. And then refreeze is when you say, okay, we're no longer changing, this is new normal. You get rid of all the old nice. So that's your goal, is to kind of, you have a culture, you have a process, you have to kind of break that up a little, you have to unfreeze it. Then you got to change, but then you want to refreeze to a normal. You don't want to stay in that change process for too long because it's disruptive. Kotter's 8-step process. Next to ADKAR's is probably one of the most popular. It's from a guy who's from Harvard and came up with this 8-step process. I'm not going to read through it just for sake of time, but again, you'll see it's got a lot of those same principles. When we talk about change management, we're often, most often, what you're talking about is kind of change management when it comes to people. But one thing I threw up here actually, which I thought was interesting, was Prosky's enterprise change management. So Prosky is the ones behind ADKAR. So the guy who, Jeff Hyatt, he's the founder of that firm. He had ADKAR. But, so I thought it was interesting to have another change management model. But this one they call the enterprise change management model. And it's looking a lot at how do you manage change at an enterprise level. And if you go down to 3.2 there, you have a create change management plan, when this whole thing is a change management plan, so it's kind of interesting. But the point being, you might hear this used other places. So change management is kind of a broad word, but generally when you hear it, it's talking about how do we help people change. Because that's what we're at the bottom of the organization. Now we have to look at other things, but we're really, when we talk change management, that's what we're talking. How do we help people to go through change and to be able to deal with change? Because if the people don't change, the technology, everything else you do, it's going to be a waste of money if you can't get the people to adopt that change. So.
I'm going to go back to the ADKAR model for a little bit because I want to share my experience with it. We used the ADKAR model at Simplot when I was involved in implementing a big ERP system. And the timeline for a project like that tends to be somewhat condensed and very short. So you might see the AD, K, and A follow the timeline of the project very closely, and they are very condensed. So what tends to happen a lot is that the employees or the users or the people who are receiving the change don't process all that right away. And the R tends to be dragged and very long, where you have to reinforce over and over and over again, and the company has to go through a transformation phase before you get to a stable phase after the project is done. But this is the model that we followed, and it was pretty successful with a very large reinforcement after the project was done. But I'm going to talk to you about trends in the change management. And I can think of a change that we're all going to go through here pretty soon is we're not gonna have school, we're gonna be done. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm sure all of you are. But do you guys have any, I'm thinking about maybe taking a long break and going back to school for getting a PMP certification or something like that. Do you guys think of any stuff that you're gonna go back to school for?
Was that a
Like-
joke or are you serious?
There's stuff I want, there's
Like,
stuff I
we're not-
wanted
we
to
don't
do.
wanna-
I don't really want to.
So I'm not going back to school, but I'm going to be studying for my CTA.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of schedule about 8 hours a day in order to be able to finish all 4 exams by the end of the summer, which is what I told my employer I was going to try to do. So
Oh, I see. Interesting. But there are careers in change management, and there are certifications out there, and a lot of companies are hiring for that. The jobs in the change management roles are increasing from this Prosky benchmarking report, as it shows it's increasing from 43.52 to 53% year over year, and I'm sure right now it's gone way up. The participants who integrated change management and project management are increasing as well. You can see 2015, or 77% of projects integrate change management in them. So if you have a skill in change management and a skill in project management, you're very sought in the workplace. Companies are applying change management more broadly, and there is more involved application. There's more awareness, as we discussed in the ADCAR model, and there are more dedicated resources. I had a lot of our organizational development department has a lot of trained people that are dedicated for change management that help us go through projects and train users and do all that. So that's where a lot of the positions end up to be advertised in the org structure or organizational departments. Let me see if I'm not skipping anything. So some of the other trends in the change management industry are the digital world. A lot of the projects that use change management nowadays tend to be the ones that are for systems, for large systems, and this is more noticed in big corporations, medium to large corporations, versus smaller ones, because the smaller ones may have a smaller workforce that is easily manageable, versus the big ones that have to deal with thousands of employees, and they have to communicate on a large scale and manage that change more broadly. But the digital change is definitely one of the main drivers for change nowadays. A lot of companies now create a platform, like Drew mentioned, that they create like a set or a framework. That way they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time they're going through a change. They kind of have a governance and several set steps that they go through and teach their project managers and change professionals to go through. That way they have to go through that every time. Even some companies are even hiring chief change officers to manage their change. And the third trend is change as a service, where companies purchase a third-party tool to manage their change. So in addition to the staff that is doing the change, they are managing it in a system where they can provide academies, methodologies, certifications. It's almost like a learning tool as well as a change management tool. All right?
Alright, so I'm going to go into what a change management job would look like. And this will take exactly 5 minutes if you guys are wondering. So first, and actually this is a pretty good summary of what everything they said, and the responsibilities came from Prosky Enterprises. So what would a job in change management look like? Apply a standard methodology and lead change management activities. This means apply a change management process and tools to create a strategy to support adoption of the changes required by a project or initiative. Support change management at organizational levels. This might mean building in some signature wins or finding other ways to encourage. Support communication efforts by supporting the design, development, delivery, and management of communications. Support training efforts. Assess the change impact by conducting impact analysis, assessing change readiness, and identifying key stakeholders. Support training efforts by providing input, documenting requirements, and supporting the design and delivery of training programs. Okay, some additional responsibilities might include consult and coach project teams, create change management strategy, define and measure success metrics, and monitor change progress, support and engage senior leaders, manage stakeholders, coordinate efforts with specialists, identify, analyze, and prepare mitigation tactics for risk, identify and manage anticipated resistance, support organizational design and define roles and responsibilities, evaluate and ensure user readiness, manage the portfolio and change load, and finally track and report issues. So these are 4 skills that change leaders must develop. The first one, one of the most important, is listen to your front line. Basically, this means to actively listen to the people that are on the front line. That's the employees that interact with customers, suppliers, and co-workers day in and day out. This will let you know exactly what is going on in the organization's processes. Making your front line active contributors to change creates a buy-in feeling in throughout the organization. Many change initiatives are doomed from the start because leaders spend all their time listening to other leaders and listening to third parties with fancy resumes instead of listening to the people on the front line. Play the politics of change. Every change is going to be political because with every change there's going to be winners and losers. Losers are going to see their control and influence diminish. They might sabotage instead of contribute to the change. To manage politics, change leaders will need to reduce uncertainty, broker deals, check their own egos, and make sincere effort to make everyone feel respected and heard. This is where signature wins can be effective. When a leader becomes known as the champion of good ideas, the team will buy in and start to contribute good ideas themselves, wanting to be part of the change. Know the organizational priorities. Getting to know the trust and alignment needed to implement change is the hardest step because transformational change must always span organizational boundaries. A leader must develop a rapport with key people from within each boundary by learning what is important to that individual and as a group within their respective cultures. Then the change leader has to create intersections to develop a shared culture and learn how to truly read people. Understanding what is going on can't be done through presentations, PowerPoints, and reports. You must interact and find out what is really going on and how people are really feeling. And then finally, the ability to persevere. As a leader of transformational change, you can always count on something going wrong. Your ability to stay on course, rally the troops, and keep moving forward will determine either your success or failure. To press on in the face of difficulties, leaders must have a core purpose they believe in that anchors the initiative and guides the team's decision making. The most powerful core purpose is end-user focused and simple.
Hey, Brandon, do you think the back link? Mind if I jump in real quick? So I was just thinking about something, because I just saw a job come across. I reviewed the job description for a change management position, a role at our company. And so it includes, pretty much those things that Brandon went over already. A lot of, it's in our project management office, so we have a PMO office, and so there's a lot of overlap between change management and project management. So if you're wondering kind of between what those are, there's a lot of overlap, but the change management is a little more, I think it has a little more people focus to it, so you have to have a little more of the behavioral experience, whereas the project management's going to be very just kind of, project management with people as well, but you guys we went through project management, Gantt charts and all that. Change management, you need a little more of the human behavior element. So that's kind of something that's breaking off of project management. It used to sort of be in there, and even at our company, they just realized it wasn't working. They needed someone dedicated to looking at that, yeah?
Okay, so when I'm thinking about this it kind of makes me just think it's like kind of like spin, right? It like makes me think like the Trump administration could use a good change manager, right? So like let everyone know what's going on, get them to buy in, all that stuff.
I think it's a great example. They've done so many wonderful things, but they haven't done a good job of explaining it.
Well,
So I think you're exactly right, yeah.
the first part is up for debate, but they definitely haven't done it. I know, but like they definitely haven't even tried to like do a good job. I mean, Sean Spicer, he's pretty great, but
Yes.
anyways, sorry, politics aside. But so I was wondering for that position, because I was gonna ask this for Brian earlier, like are the positions like, typically, are you hiring for like that person stays in your company, or is it short term? Because to me, a change manager shouldn't be familiar with the company and understand the people. And if it's like, it doesn't seem at all similar to a project manager to me. I don't get that. Like project manager makes sense how they come in, they do the project, and then they say goodbye. But like a change manager, if you want someone to like people to listen to and like have some credibility. So anyway, I was just curious for that position if that was something your company was. Is that person staying, or is it like short term?
It's a full-time position.
It's okay.
And it's gonna be the size of the company.
Okay.
Is that a question, or are you
I
just
just
giving me
wanted to
okay,
mention
yeah.
something. So change management in our facility, because we were going through so much change in healthcare, I brought up to my boss that I think she should pay for me and this other girl to go do a change management certification.
Yeah.
And she's not opposed to the proposal, I just have to put it together, and present it formally. So
We
they
have two people
look at that.
just went and did that.
Yeah.
Do we have a
change management
team?
You need to
Sure.
come. We need a
They don't do
a
a very good
rainbow.
job.
We need a breath of fresh air.
So we have a project manager office, so we have a director of that. We have a training group, so it's an HR, we have a head of that. They both went and got certified in change management, I think in Admin. But there's hiring a person whose focus is going to be that, working with those two groups. So the project management piece is just, you look at these frameworks, if you actually dug into AdCarp, it's just, there's a lot of steps, and who are you doing, and who are involving you, and when are you involving it, what's going here. So that's where kind of that piece of it. But you're right, yeah, knowing the organization is crucial. And so there are sometimes, like consulting practices, there's a lot of them because if you're doing a huge change management effort, you're not going to have the resources to do that. Or if you hired them up, you're not going to need them after it. So sometimes we bring on consultants, but ideally they're able to partner with the people internally. But if you're a large enough company doing change regularly enough, like we're not that big, 2,300. We decided it's time to have someone. And so yeah, it's a good point. But yeah, knowing that culture is going to be huge. And so if you do have an internal resource, the external resources can sometimes help with. They're creating materials. They're helping.
Right.
Develop the plan. They've done it before. So it's a good point. Yeah. That culture piece is it's probably way more important in the change management than the project management, because that really understanding how can you, because you have to change it in a sense. You have to work with the culture, but you kind of have to change it. It's great. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over. I was just thinking about the job description I just saw, and so it's kind of interesting. She had like the requirements section. I would pop it up, but I don't know where it is. You know how you have like requirements? She had like probably at least 40
Oh my God.
requirements, and I was like, you're not gonna hire us first. That was kind of funny, but she's like, well, they don't have to do them all. We'll pick like the 10 most important. Yeah, so there's a lot of things to do. Those are all our references. You expect you to memorize them. If you're wondering about any of this, where we got it, ask us, and we're happy to point you to these. Any questions? Thank you.
Molly, you should apply for that job.
Brian said no.
Brian told me he doesn't want me to work this company.
I got a lot of power there.
He's gonna sabotage it.
Yeah.
Write up your notes for these guys.
He won't
We'll
find
take a
it
break
like
here.
my
and
resume
regroup in about
fire.
10 minutes.
I really, I think I really am gonna.
You want to see it? Don't hire her.
Seriously?
I honestly might apply for someone. I have absolutely, right, I've got nothing to lose. I can do
I'm done.
my life.
What if
One and
I
done.
forget? What if I forget?
It's bar number.
Staring right at me.
What are you saying? This one?